This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos Rabbi Sai. Today is Rosh Chodesh Av. We begin the 9 days. Today, of course, is also the yard site of Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen, the Oyev Shalom, V'roidev Shalom. Hopefully it's a shmira and a protection for these yamim, which are fraught with historic tragedy for Klal Yisrael. Well, the Navi Yeshaya tells us psukim which are well known, but I don't think anybody has any idea what they mean. Al Choy Moisayach Yerushalayim, on your gates of Yerushalayim, Hifkadati Shoymrim, I have appointed guards, Kol Hayom V'Chol Halayla, all day and all night. Tamid, always, Lo Yachashu, they are never silent. Hamazkirim es Hashem, they remind Hashem. Al Dami Lachem, we tell these guards, do not be silent. V'al Titnu Dami Loi, do not give him silence. Ad Yichoynein, until he establishes. V'ad Yasim es Yerushalayim, until he places Yerushalayim Tehila Ba'aretz, as a praise on earth. Here the words of the Navi tell us that I've appointed guards around the gates of Yerushalayim. And the question is, who are these guards? Look there today, there are no guards. And one thing I guarantee you, it does not refer to the Mishtara or the Palestinian police. This is not what the Navi is referring to when it says Al Choy Moisayach Yerushalayim Hifkadati Shoymrim Kol Hayom V'Chol Halayla.
Why is Yerushalayim missing the
Why does Yerushalayim need guards? Who are the guards? And we tell them not to be silent. So we're talking to them. We would think we know who they are. And what are they reminding Hashem to do? Why does God need to be reminded? Well, I want to bring to your attention a concept which I'm sure you've heard the concept before, although I don't think anybody knows what the source is. And the concept is that we are all awaiting the rebuilding of the third Beis Hamikdash, Shehibana B'mher V'yameinu. And the question is, in what way is it going to be built? What is our shiur? What could we do? Do we have any role in it? And the Al-Shech HaKadosh in Parsha in Sefer Yeshaya actually explains that this pasuk is addressing the rebuilding of the third Beis Hamikdash, and this Al-Shech is explained by the Sefer Arvei Nachal. Arvei Nachal is written by Rav David Eibeshitz. Rav David Eibeshitz wrote the Arvei Nachal, which is a Sefer of Drush. He also wrote a work on Shulchan Aruch called Levushay Srad. So the Magen Avraham on Orach Chaim has small comments, Levushay Srad, also written by Rav David Eibeshitz. As far as I know, he's not related to Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz more than you're related to Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz. Okay.
Maybe we're related.
That's exactly.
We can be related.
You got it. So maybe yeah, maybe no. Well, the Arvei Nachal says like this: Amnam tiritz davar zeh behektim ashapir sha'alshech b'psukei Yeshaya. Al choy moisayach Yerushalayim hifkadati shoymrim kol hayom v'chol halayla tamid lo yechashu. Bi'aru Chazal. Chazal explain. Klape shehisrama kedushas Yerushalayim lefnei Hashem. Chazal tell us that the sanctity of Jerusalem cries out before Hashem, b'tseisam b'goyla, when we go out into Galus, ulai chas v'shalom yishkachna Yisrael Shemai, maybe, heaven forbid, God will forget us. In other words, Yerushalayim says to God, God, we're going into Galus, maybe you're going to forget about Yerushalayim. Ulafayes oisa, and in order to console Yerushalayim, mina shoymrim, God appointed guards, malachim, angels, hamaskirim tamid as Hashem kaviyachal, that are constantly reminding Hashem. So in order to appease Yerushalayim, Hashem tells Yerushalayim, I'm going to appoint guards. V'hoidia li Yerushalayim zois, and Hashem is letting Yerushalayim know, ki hifgid shoymrim ka'amor, that He appointed guards. V'oid meisav hadibur klape hashoymrim. This comment is now being addressed to the guards. V'oimer lahem, and we're telling the shoymrim, Atem hamaskirin es Hashem, you guards who are reminding Hashem, Al domi lachem, do not be silent. Al titnu domi lachem, do not give him silence. Ad yechoinen v'ad yasim es Yerushalayim tila ba'aretz. Now, what exactly does this mean?
How do you say, ulai shishkechenu, we have a cloud, ein shichel is nikisik v'edecha. Hashem doesn't do anything.
Okay, they were worried. They were worried. Like a kid who asks his parent, don't forget to get me a Hanukkah present. Parent's not going to forget. But the kid wants to make sure the parent doesn't forget. Ubiru zal. Well, the Alshich explains. Ki binyan bayis ha'asid b'mher v'yamenu yavai me'ashamayim binyan shalish. We have a klal that the third Beis Hamikdash will come down from Shamayim. Now, even though there's a stira, there are many stiras to that. The Gemara is mashma that it's going to be built b'dei Adam, because the Gemara says it's not built on Shabbos. The Gemara says it won't be built on Yom Tif. And there are contradictions as to who will build the third Beis Hamikdash, whether it will be built by Adam or whether it will be built by Shamayim. Well, says the Alshich, we have a tradition will come down from heaven in fire. V'zanasa meiruchnias haTorah. And who makes the Yerushalayim Shalmala? Who makes the Beis Hamikdash Shalmala? Masim Toivim Sha'osim Yisrael Me'esh Nechar Beis Hamikdash. It's created by the good deeds of Klal Yisrael from the time the Beis Hamikdash was built. Uchamay Binyan Gashmi. Like a physical building, right? Do you ever go do the Kotel tours? So you go down deep into the ground and they show you the stone. You can't even imagine how big it is. You can't even see how big it is. It's massive. They don't even know how they got it there. So you have tremendous foundation stones, right? It goes down all the way down to the virgin stone. Unbelievable size. And then you have smaller stones. You have medium-sized stones. You have pebbles. There are different categories of bricks. Ad shenigmar. Uchamoy binyan gashmi. Just like a physical edifice, shenasu me'asifas avanim shemasimin even el even ad shenigmar. Just like a physical edifice that is made out of many stones until it's complete. V'yesh mekaymas shadai ba'avanim ketanim. Some places in a building you could use small stones, like in the middle of the wall. V'yesh mekaymas shetzarach avanim gedalos. Some places you need big stones. Kamo b'pinois habayis. V'yiseidoisav, like in the corners or the foundations. Some part of a house need big stones, strong stones, mighty stones. Other place you could use smaller stones. Same thing with the Beis Hamikdash. Some places you need big mitzvahs. You need big ma'asim tovim. Other places you only need small mitzvahs. Kachu binyan haruchani chaymas eish. So too is the spiritual building, the wall of fire. Ki ha-mitzvahs me'anoshim pchusei ha'erach asher einam kol kach hashuvim heim ke'inyan avanim aktanim. Now, you'll ask, what are big mitzvahs and what are small mitzvahs? It's not about big mitzvahs and small mitzvahs. It's about heavyweights and featherweights. It depends who you are. Some people, they're heavyweights. Their mitzvahs make the foundation stones. Others are more lightweights. Their mitzvahs make other parts of the building. The mitzvahs of lower people, asher einam kol kach hashuvim, heim ke'inyan avanim aktanim. The mitzvahs me'anoshim tzadikim haramim. The mitzvahs from great tzaddikim, him ke'inyan avanim gedolos. Umikulam nigmar habinyan. From all of this, the binyan is complete. V'chol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek boi. Every Jew has a share. Umi she'en lechelek boi lo yirenu. And if you did not contribute to it, you will not see it. That's all.
We do our best to destroy stones.
So now the question is, but we've had so many big tzaddikim over the years who presumably have created so much of the Beis Hamikdash. You would have expected that the Beis Hamikdash would have been completed numerous times by now. Well, if you have little kids, one thing you know is that it could take them a whole Shabbos afternoon to build something out of Lego, and it just takes about a split second for one of them to come along and break the whole thing. And that rule is, it's much easier to break something than to build something. And it's the same thing with the Beis Hamikdash. Yes, we've had many tzaddikim, many anoshim chashuvim, and many mitzvahs gedolos. But what it takes a tzaddik a whole lifetime to build, a rasha could come knock it down in a moment. V'amnam yiksha shebechol dar yesh tzadikim harbe. In every generation, there are many tzadikim, asher mimaseim atoivim, that do with their good deeds. Kfar nigmar abayis v'yeser seis v'yeser ois. The Beis Hamikdash you would have expected to be built numerous times. Umazeh kacha ikuva shadayim l'nei Beis Hamikdash. So nu, what's taking so long? V'atiritz l'zeh. The answer is ki echad boineh u'mei asoisrem. One guy builds, while 100 are knocking him down. Ki kol ish ha'oisa avera mapuk tzas mechoymas Beis Hamikdash. Every man who does an avera is knocking down the Beis Hamikdash. So you have to understand, every time you speak Lashon Hara, you're knocking down a wall. Every time you talk by davening, you're knocking down the wall. So you have to be aware of that. That's why Chazal say, Kol dar shalai nivna Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. Kilu necharava b'yamav. It's not an allegory; it's reality. V'imchas oisa chas v'sham avera gedoyla. Now it could be if you do a small avera, then you knock down a stone. If you do a big avera, yitzuyar shemapa chas v'sham koisel shalim. Could be you're knocking down a whole wall. Asher amlu bainav bay. Ulazet siva Hashem, and therefore God commands us, Hoicheach toichiach, rebuke your friend. So for example, let's say you see your friend about to do an avera. Up to what point do you need to be moichiach him? So Chazal say, ad haka, until he's about to punch you in the face, uklala, and curse you. So let's say you see a guy in the middle of Chazar Sashatz, he decides he's going to talk to his friend. So he decides he wants to knock down the wall of the Beis Hamikdash. I'm waiting 2,000 years, and this guy, because he has to find out what happened yesterday, wants to knock down a wall. So I have to reprimand him. But what if he's not going to like me? Up to what point do I need to reprimand him? So the Gemara says, until he's going to punch you in the face. And you might say that's a little bit extreme. I mean, right? Ad Khan. I have to go that far that the guy is going to hate my guts and punch me in the face? Why do I have to go that far? The answer is because it makes a big difference, because he's about to knock down the Beis Hamikdash. What wouldn't you do to stop such a thing? You got to fight with him. The guy's going to say basically, hey, mind your own business. This is America.
This is my business. You're knocking down the Beis
Hamikdash. The guy's a fool. If you would come to my house and decide to knock down a wall, would you say to me, mind your own business, I just want to knock down your house? Of course not. I'd take a bat and make sure you don't do that. Same thing with the Beis Hamikdash. This guy wants to knock down the Beis Hamikdash. Well, it's my problem now. You break his arms and legs.
That's a mitzvah. You're doing worse, you're not getting.
No, so you shouldn't break his arms and legs. But
if you're not getting.
Not machlekes. Please do not knock down the Beis Hamikdash.
Nice, you miss it. Doesn't help. It's starting to
say, hey pal, lay off the Beis Hamikdash. That's all. Lay off. It's not a fight. He's fighting with him. He's fighting with the Shulchan Aruch. He's not fighting with you. That's not a machlekes. He's fighting with the Shulchan Aruch. Somebody once told me. I remember I once spoke about tznius. So somebody came over to me. She said, how can you talk about tznius? There are women here who their knees are not covered, their elbows are not covered. They're going to be embarrassed. You're embarrassing them. I got very scared, So I went to one of my Arveim. He said, you're not embarrassing them. They're embarrassing themselves. There's a halacha, there's a Shulchan Aruch. You're just informing them what it says. That's not embarrassing them. They're embarrassing them. It's not fighting. That's a machlekes. Let me tell you. I'm going to hold on to it. But people they misinterpret sinas chinam. Sinas chinam. We'll see what it means. Sinas chinam is when you tell people the right thing to do, and they don't like you because of that. Their hatred to you is sinas chinam. That's a sinas machlekes. They're machlekes. Anyway, I don't think I ever spoke about that before. I'm joking.
The last will extreme. Correct to get with the mitzvah, but at hakol with klola, it will be extreme. You have to provoke hakol and klola. That's you're not accomplishing anything with this. You haven't accomplished anything. Add.
Just short of.
V'lazeh hisrama kedushas Yerushalayim. And this, the sanctity of Yerushalayim complains, Pen yishkachna chas v'sham, maybe it will be forgotten. Because Yerushalayim says to Hashem, how many tzaddikim are there and how many Risham are there? It's way out of proportion. This ain't happening, Yerushalayim says. Ki ma'at boinim v'harbei soisrim. We have too few builders and too many destroyers. Umi yoidea ad masai ketz haplas. In other words, based on this very depressing report of the status of what it's going to take to get this thing to stay up, it ain't looking so good. Lazeh mina Hashem shoymrei hachoymos. That's why God appointed guards.
We need Trump to come in and build it quickly.
Beli yanichu l'soisra, not to let it be destroyed. Who are the shoymrim? Veheim amoichichim es am Hashem. They are the ones who reprimand. Ulamoichichim yunam hamoinim es oivdei avera. And those who give rebuke need to prevent the violators, not to knock down the walls. And therefore it says, on your walls, Yerushalayim, hifkadati shomer, I have appointed guards. Umesiv hadibor el hamoichichem. And these comments are going to the instructors, the rebukers, and it says to them, Atem hamaskirim es Hashem al dami lachem. You meichichem, you rebukers, you who are reminding Hashem, do not be silent. Lo yasig eschem ayefos. Do not weaken up. Do not be tired. Limchois ba'ovrei avera, to protest of those who violate the averos uleskoite timam, to fight with them. Elu dvarav. Well, comes the Arvei Nachal and he says as follows: Al kapanim yatzalanu. What emerges is ki adarabba miyamois hachorban, from the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Kol oisan adoros heim hamakaimim mitzvahs binyan Beis Habachira. All those generations are fulfilling the mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdash. In other words, who built the Beis Hamikdash? We all build the Beis Hamikdash. What we have to watch out for, we have to be careful about is we can't destroy the Beis Hamikdash. So it's brought down over here. The Yalkut Gershuni, where he explains based on this idea the pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Chav Zayin Shir Hamalos. Im Hashem lo yivna bayis, shav amlu vaynav bay. Im Hashem lo yishmarir, shav shakad shaymer. If Hashem does not build the Beis Hamikdash, the builders build it for naught. If Hashem does not guard the city, naught are the guards. Well, the Yalkut Gershuni says like this: if Hashem does not build the Beis Hamikdash, it is the builders build it for naught. The future building of the Beis Hamikdash is built out of what? The mitzvahs and the Masim Tovim. Right? Like Chazal say, if the future Beis Hamikdash is going to come down in Shamayim in Eish, we say in Nachem. Right? Nachem is right? How many brachos are there? They only say once a year. B'dikas chametz. What's the bracha? Abir chametz. Birchas Ilanos. Lahadlik ner shel Yom Kippurim. And then Nachem. There are only 4 brachas you say once a year. It's a good.
You say every day. Bonei Yerushalayim is every day.
Yeah, with Nachem though we don't say every day.
But the Bonei Yerushalayim, it is Bonei Yerushalayim. That's
But we don't say Bonei Yerushalayim.
I say Bonei Yerushalayim.
Right, but on Tisha B'av I don't say Bonei Yerushalayim. I say Menachem Tzion Ubonei Yerushalayim. It's not the same.
It's not the same
It's Menachem Tzion Ubonei Yerushalayim. In fact,
You add on to it.
you can't say it every day. It's a different bracha. Well, in the bracha, in the nusach of Nachem, we say, Ki ve'esh hitzata, uve'esh asa ata asad Levnoisa. So what does that mean? Uve'esh ata asa levnoisa. According to the Arvei Nachal, the Eish refers to the ruchnius of the Torah Masim Tovim that Klal Yisrael has performed. So, I'll give you 1 second. The Yaakov Gershuni says like this, that the Binyan HaAsid is going to be built from the Tshuva and the Masim Tovim of Klal Yisrael. And if our mitzvahs are Amitiyim and L'Shem Shamayim, it would certainly be built Mehera. But the problem is, the mitzvahs that we do, they're forgeries, they're scams, they're not L'Shem Shamayim. And that is what's delaying the Beis Hamikdash. And that's what we mean. If Hashem does not build it, then, in other words, if it's not built for Hashem, L'Shem Shamayim, then Shav Amlu Bainava. Yes?
From a practical point of view, unless there are absolutely no Rishayim, and no one does a single Avera, it's impossible for the Beis HaMikdash to be completed. Because if even there's one Avera, destroys a pebble, stone, whatever the nature of that Avera is. From just a logical point of view, unless everybody, which is not likely to happen, is completely free of Averos, how is it possible for the Beis HaMikdash to be completed?
We got to up the ante. We got to outrace them. You got to have more heavyweights, more mitzvahs, more Ma'asim Tovim.
Yeah, but even one Russia does one small Avera.
Obviously, there's a system that works, right? Yeah. And right now, it's not working.
So understood. I'm just trying to understand the Yosef Lover. How's it
worked one time?
The spear rocks.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, I know, I wrote this, the Irish seems like with some kind of settler, because the whole thing is a negative way. Liskoiti to him, boy, Limchoid them, to have, wasn't saying the Karif Ham Yisrael, La Erev Yisrael, even but talking about the person of Kiruv this fellow, something of the Karif, to be a Moisi Bahava, he always say the situation week, the sinners Skinam, Moisi Bahava Skinam. Positively, always negative, why should fight them, could hit them. That's not a really you should.
No, he doesn't say you should hit them. You should tell them.
That's a negative way. You have supposed to have positive way. The car with him. I was in Hong Kong for 2 years. I saw Kira working. Unbelievable. People who didn't know what the shul is. And with Kara, with a lot of these people came by the shulas. And when they read it, that's help. That helps. Fighting doesn't help.
Yeah, he doesn't mean to chepa them and to instigate. There's a way to do it. Well, I know. I happen to know that there's a very effective Kirov speaker who has a lot of hits on Torah Anytime, who's very outspoken, very, very outspoken, and he just says it as it is. And they interviewed him, and they asked him why he feels that he's so effective. He says, because when people hear, Shabbos, it's such a beautiful thing to do. It's such a nice thing to do. Okay. So is going to slot machines on Shabbos. It's also a nice, beautiful thing to do. People want to hear the truth. People want to hear that if they don't keep Shabbos, they're not going to do well upstairs. People want to know that.
I don't want to hear that.
What?
I want to hear that.
Maybe you don't want to hear it, but there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people in this world.
I want to hear an air-conditioned Beis HaMikdash, a nice Shiur.
This is true.
We got the cake.
This is what the Gemara says. Obviously, the presentation has to be. Obviously, the presentation has to be catered to the people in a way that they're able to accept. But that's what the Gemara tells us. Bottom line is, says the Arvei Nachal, Ibra. However, Lasher lav kol adam zoicha yiyah b'masim tovim shaloi koyach livnois mehem chametz beis haggadah v'hakodesh ruch nechametz eish. Very interesting. Not everybody has the capacity to do a mitzvah that's going to make tremendous difference in building the Beis HaMikdash Shamala. So Hashem wanted to do us a favor. And what did He give us? Hashem gave us one mitzvah which is as closely possible resembling the mitzvah of building the Beis HaMikdash, and that is what the pasuk says in Yechezkel, V'hu ma she'amar hakasav, Va'ehi lahem l'mikdash ma'at, Eilu bate knesiyos. Hashem gave us the mitzvah of building our Mikdash Ma'at, and our Mikdash Ma'at is the Beis HaKnesses. Ula'asid lavai yuchlal kedushas v'ruchnias kabate knesiyas sheb'chutz la'aretz Beis HaMikdash. We know, the Gemara says in Masechta Megillah, that la'asid lavai, the kedusha of the shuls will be transported to the Beis HaMikdash. So let's think about this concept for a moment. If the Beis HaMikdash is supposed to be built out of the kedusha of our shuls, do you think that the way we act in our shuls is infusing it with kedusha? Okay, let's hear what other people say. Right?
Kiddush clubs, this.
We don't do kiddush clubs.
Yeah, we come young Israel.
No, I'm not makabel.
Come together.
No. But that's the question. The question is, the way we are noyeg in our shuls, is that elevating the shul to the level where now this makam is going to become part of the Beis HaMikdash? Well, unfortunately, that does not sound even more promising than the first possibility. Well, therefore, it is incumbent upon all of us, in an attempt to do whatever we can to rebuild the third Beis HaMikdash, to understand that it's one of two ways: either through the mitzvahs hamasim tovim, and even more directly, the way we are noyeg in a shul. What does that mean? Do we value the shul? Do we value every moment in the shul? Are we careful in the zmanei tefillah? In their halachas, even forget about talking by davening. I was in Lakewood this past week. What were they working on there? Making sure nobody talks ben gavra legavra, between aliyahs. Now I ask you a question: are you allowed to talk ben gavra legavra?
Yes.
No, you're not.
No.
No.
If you have to.
Divrei Torah, no?
Divrei Torah.
They're saying a mishaber for
I'm
something.
saying talking. Are you allowed to have a conversation with someone ben gavra
You're not allowed to have
legavra? You look.
anything in the shul
Let me give a share. Thank you. That in between aliyahs, you could look in the Shulchan Aruch. Does anybody say you're allowed to talk? No? How about Divrei Torah? No.
Of course not.
No. Are you allowed to learn yourself? The Bach was Mekel. Okay, so if you're learning yourself. So it's something that people don't even think about. It's not even on the radar. Ben gavra legavra. These are all things that people need to think about. You're right, in a shul in general, is there a heter to talk?
No.
Not according to Mishnah Berurah. According to Mishnah Berurah, you can't talk in a shul. The Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, they give a heter. And nowadays, it's efshar lizoyer, not to have a simple conversation. I even saw in a sefer, what's the heter to talk in a shul? The heter is that people will be insulted if you don't ask them how they're doing. So for the purpose of v'hafta l'recha kamoicha and bein adam l'chaver, you can have a conversation. But to talk in a shul about news, sports, finances, I'm not aware of anybody who says you could do that. And it's not only that people are not nizar, it's not even on our radar. Who even thinks about such a thing? At least we should be aware. There should be a threshold that a person has where says, you know what? Let's take this outside. I'm not telling you what the threshold should be, but how could it be? I mean, do we have any concept at all that a shul is a mikdash, is a Beis HaMikdash? No. Is that on the radar at all?
No.
It's not really on the radar, and I speak for myself.
I see it.
It's not something we think about. It's not something we're cognizant of.
And I just want to comment on the Lashon here. It says, Bate Knesiyos.
Yeah.
I'm learning in the Shiur, in Megillah, towards the end of Megillah, he talks about you can sell, not sell. Beis Knesses is not what we have today. Today we have Beis Medrash. The Beis Knesses was reserved specifically for davening. If you have Shiur or Drudge,
so Beis Medrash has even more kedusha.
But in the Beis Medrash there are kulas. You could sleep there. You could eat there.
No.
No.
So 1 second. The kula, there are chumras and there are kulas. The chumra is Beis Medrash has more kedusha.
Right.
The kula is that's because it's dedicated for learning. Maybe you could eat there. Now the Shulchan Aruch paskins you're not allowed to. Shulchan Aruch paskins like Tosfos, say you're not allowed to. Rashi is mekel. Rav Moshe has a tshuva that our minhag is like Rashi for eating, but not dvar b'telim. Nobody, the heter of the Beis Medrash is not for talking. It's not for
Can you
talking.
give shalom to the Rav after davening?
Of course, that's Kavod Torah. You have to give shalom to the Rav. People, they after davening, they leave. No, you're not allowed to do that. You have to go say hello to the Rav. You have to be mechabe the Rav. But Moshe writes in a tshuva that in some shul, if the minhag is after an aliyah to go give shalom to the Rav, you're obligated to do that. You're not allowed to violate any custom which was ordained to enhance the esteem of the Kavod Torah. You're not. But now we're not talking about it. We're not here to say you shouldn't give shalom to the Rav. That's not, I don't think, the issue that's plaguing. We're talking about conversations. Conversations. There are topics which a person should have a personal threshold and say, you know what, I don't talk about this in the shul. How you doing? How's your family? And at a certain point, it's adkan v'sula. It's a makam hamikdash. I don't know about you. I remember when I was at the when I was a balcher, when I would go to the Kaisam Arvei, do you just like arbitrarily talk and talk and talk? And for what I remember, there's a certain reverence you have to the makam. You don't just shoot the breeze over there. Well, the Kaisam Arvei is only the wall of the Harabais. It's not even of the Mikdash. The shul is Va'elam the Mikdash Ma'at. It's somehow a concept that we have to try to bring into our consciousness, and we hope b'siyata d'shmaya to elevate our respect for Makom Hamikdash. We should all be zoicha to the binyan Beis Hashisim Heri Yamin. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.